tempted to try to get started a little bit early. Folks can keep filing in. We're so grateful on this beautiful day that you chose to spend some time with us. I'll introduce what we're doing here with the help of Wendy Johnson, and then we'll get to our panelists, and then we have a small break for networking. I know there are a lot of you who know each other already, but other people you may want to meet in this space. And then we'll have our second panel on legislative development, and then have some time and some snacks outside to wrap us up. So, to get us started, my name is Douglas Berman. I am the Executive Director of the Ohio State University Drug Enforcement and Policy Center. This is a new center that has a variety of missions, as you can see from the banner, but among the things that we're really invested in is elevating and educating the conversation about marijuana reform, both in Ohio and around the nation. And so we've done a number of panels throughout this first year of our existence on this topic. Specifically, we started in January with these Cannabis Roundtables. And we didn't do it in a round room last time, it's a little bit round, and so we're really living up to the name, even though I guess the tables are rectangular. But what was especially interesting for me today is to reflect back that our last panel was in January when the university was actually closed in the morning because it was so cold. And I'm going to give Wendy all the credit for bringing nicer weather. It has nothing to do with the calendar. But I bring up that first Cannabis Roundtable because it really was the genesis of the second one. Specifically, we had the good fortune to have two marijuana business people from out of state come in to talk to my class. I teach a seminar at the law school on marijuana policy and reform, and we put some additional local experts around them, and it turned out they all looked kind of like me, and that's an insult in the sense that they're ugly as me, but they weren't all old, but they were all white men. And it wasn't that we wouldn't set out to try to put together a business roundtable with only white men, but it just sort of happened that way, and quite rightly, Wendy and a number of others said, hey, this doesn't represent what the industry really is. This isn't a full range of voices that should be part of these important conversations. And my response was, you're exactly right. Help us do better. And that is not only a reality of what led these panels to come into creation, but something that I encourage everybody attending or others they may know that work in this space. Help us as a center, help us as a community do better in these conversations, because there are so many angles, there are so many elements to what's going on here in Ohio and around the nation, that what we need to have is constant, thoughtful discussion and engagement from everybody, from all sorts of perspectives, all sorts of backgrounds. And so I'm incredibly grateful that Wendy worked with our center to put together two amazing panels with diverse voices talking about some of the diversity issues, but also broader issues that the industry is facing here in Ohio and across the nation. And so that's how we got here, or at least we did. I don't know how you got here, but I appreciate you're here to join us for this part of the journey. I'm going to turn it over to Wendy because she deserves not only my thanks and our applause for helping make this happen, but an opportunity to talk about her perspective on this conversation and the work that she's doing.
This opportunity, the cannabis industry doesn't really get a lot of opportunity in general, especially in marketing and any kind of public events like this. We have a hard time getting the word out to people. We rely a lot on social media, and I'm glad to see that it's working a little bit. So please, when you see these kind of things on social media, share them, tell your friends, because that's about all we have in the cannabis industry. So getting started, I'd like to introduce my panel. Oops, sorry, I can talk plenty about it. So. Actually, this is probably a moot point. First on the panel is Emily Ramont. She's the GM of Terrasana here in Columbus and the founder of Compassionate Alternatives, a 501(c) who helps patients that have issues getting their cards and everything they can do to help the patients get their cards, and a lot of other things that obstacles in the signing up in the program. She has a lot of cannabis socials, just trying to get the word out and educate the public. So we have Karen Korn, the executive director of Leaf Medic. They're the first institute, I should say, in the cannabis space here in Ohio that can do continuing education units for dispensaries, processors, cultivation. They were recently accredited by both the Farm Board and the
Ohio State Board of Career Colleges and Schools.
the Ohio State Career College, Board of Career Colleges and Schools. Nicole Ross is our third panelist. She's the COO of New Raw Labs, a processing center down in Dayton. And the fourth person we have here is Alicia Reeves. She is the lead, and I'm going to blame you for this
No, it's
because
okay. I'll consider
you
it.
needed paper for your She's the lead admissions officer for Cleveland School of Cannabis and the founder of Midwest Canna Women. And another, is that a nonprofit, Midwest Canna?
No, we're just a business.
Oh, yeah, all right. And so look for some events from Midwest Canna Women up around the Cleveland area here this summer too. And last but certainly not least, we have Carmen Foltz, who is now the Assistant Director of Cultivation at Buckeye Relief.
So a round of applause for our panel. And this first panel is focused on diversity issues. One last thing, and it's not quite a diversity issue, but I want to make sure I plug now, and I'll probably hopefully remember to do it again later, is we are at the Drug Enforcement and Policy Center particularly interested in figuring out, finding out, and helping to network what we're calling sort of Buckeyes in the cannabis space. We think there's a particularly valuable opportunity for obviously an Ohio State-based center. If you have any relationships with the university, whether that's from a degree or some other connection with the university, please reach out to our center and just let us know about that, because we're trying to build kind of a network of individuals that have that connection. Among the things, candidly, that it's part of is it makes it that much easier for us to do programming here when we highlight this is about the Ohio State community and giving back to this particular community, and that's really a part of another conversation we can have about stigma and the challenges that Wendy highlighted about enabling this industry to be treated like so many others. But again, with all of that introduction in place, I want to go down the line, have each of you, though you don't all have to speak to this first sort of basic question, feel comfortable introducing yourselves again in your particular piece of the industry, and especially as it relates to this question of diversity. The question I really have in a general sense is, what does diversity mean to you in this space? And is it distinctive in the cannabis industry, or is it really just a problem or an issue in all business settings where having diverse representation and diverse participation is a challenge? So, what does diversity mean to you, and do you see it as a unique issue in this space, or is it just the same issue in a different variation in the cannabis industry?
Hello. You guys hear me? Thanks. All right. My name is Emily Ramick. I had the honor and the pleasure to open up Columbus's first dispensary here in Central Ohio, and we've been really working our butts off, and it's been really an incredible experience. So I put together, I was really honored with the staff that I put together. The core staff we've had there for at least the past 2 months have been really killer. So we're really doing the best we can for every single patient. The second they walk in the door as far as education. And I just want to first off thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for all of your patience. Especially being down here in Columbus, when you come to the store, it's a long line. And we're really trying to navigate and kind of tease out a lot of those growing pains that we've had within the dispensary as well. So just from the bottom of my heart, from Terasana specifically, I really wanted to thank all of you for your patience in that regard. After opening up the first dispensary and kind of navigated that world for about a month and a half, I've moved to a new role. I'm going to be the Director of Community Outreach, which is my very strong passion as far as community and education and event planning, and really being able to work with all of you one-on-one. On a personal level, what do you guys feel like is working? What don't you feel like is working, especially within a dispensary itself? I know Lenny had mentioned just how social media, how we can really utilize that just within our core groups, especially as an industry. We really want to make sure that this industry is sustainable and that we are truly all working together from the cultivator standpoint, dispensary standpoint, patient standpoint, clinic standpoint. We all really need to work together in all levels of diversity also, and being able to kind of uplift each other. If there is a snag, if there is something that's going on in the program, we need to have that open line of communication. So I really encourage everybody to kind of use social media in a positive light in that way. I also founded Compassion Alternatives, which Wendy kind of touched on that as well. We financially provide assistance to families who are having difficulty being able to obtain their medical marijuana permits at the clinics. We're not exclusive to any one clinic, to any one dispensary. Compassion Alternatives is a completely different nonprofit that I just truly had a really deep passion for in my time just working with medical marijuana patients. A lot of these patients are financially crippled from the amount of medical debt that they're in. So I really wanted to basically start this nonprofit. We're going on almost a year now to be able to help the patients. And then we also have our educational platform, which we bring, educational type events, do different panels, and then our Canon Network socials as well. To go ahead and kind of touch on just his diversity point, it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting experience from the get-go. Terasana, I kind of joke with them. They found me, I found them. We kind of, our visions aligned, and we've been working really well together. But it is it's pretty male-dominated, just like many other industries are. And I know that they truly value having the women, speak up and to be able to, look, this is how this should work, or maybe this shouldn't work. And, I know Terasana specifically has been very supportive of all of that specifically, but I know, just in my previous experience in this industry specifically, and the oil and gas industry as well, which is actually what I worked in. I kind of did both. I did oil and gas industry for a long time, and then I was in the medical cannabis space for almost the equivalent of that time, which two very completely different worlds, right? I mean, just completely. But if you look at, just corporate industries as a whole, I'm sure everyone is at this point very much aware that women, it's the equal pay, we need equal rights, we need equal voices, and we have equal opinions about everything that's going on. And so I really just kind of applaud Wendy for putting this together to be able to open up that conversation.
Thank you. So down the line, the bike might be working.
Is this working? Oh,
My name is Karen Korn, and I come from the higher education background, the higher education industry. My background is I have a bachelor's degree in art history, a master's degree in anthropology, and a PhD in educational leadership from UD, or that's LSU. Because I came from that space, and basically I worked for a for-profit institution that provided associate's degrees to students who want to work in the graphic design field. I did that for 5 years, and I really learned the ins and outs of for-profit, vocationally based or vocationally oriented education. And so when the law passed in 2016, I was really excited because I am a chronic pain sufferer myself. I have a congenital condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and a fibromyalgia diagnosis. So I was like, yay, I can finally not have to worry about what medications I'm taking in order to do my job. But in November of 2017, I lost my job. And I was dismissed from my role as chief academic officer for smelling of cannabis, or potentially using poor judgment and wearing a coat that may or may not have smelled of cannabis. That was what was on my discharge letter. So I lost my job for that reason. And so in November of 2017, I was hanging out with my best friend and our husbands, and we were like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? And I said, I understand for-profit education. Let's start a weed school. And so we started this little PM on Facebook. We called it WEED, W-E-E-D-S-K-O-O-L. We're like, weed school. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And we got really serious about it. We started really digging into, well, can we make a space for ourselves here? Is this something that we can do? And we did. So we went through the process for the past 18 months, I'd say, or maybe it's about a year since 18 months that we've been working on this. And we now have Ohio State Board of Career Colleges and Schools approval for our programs, as well as thanks to Mark Jacobs of Glass City. I don't know if anybody here knows him, but he submitted our training, our dispensary training, to the Medical Marijuana control program, and they approved it, because that's how you can get approved, by the way. I sort of crawled in there on my hands and knees and said, please approve this, but it has to go through a dispensary owner, so it's kind of one of the intricacies of our program. So I was really grateful that he was willing to do that for us. So anyway, we've been approved in both capacities, and so now we have an online program that anybody can access from their phone. It's an affordable price, and it confers a certificate that will qualify you to work in a medical cannabis dispensary. And we partnered with a staffing agency here in Ohio out of Sandusky called Mary Jane Agency, which is also a woman-owned agency. And we are working with Robin Ann, who runs that, to help place people in jobs. Now, there's not a lot of jobs yet, and so that's kind of been a little bit of a struggle. But so to speak to diversity, I teach anthropology at St. Clair Community College and at Edison Community College, Edison State, sorry. And so I have an academic background in that topic. And I would say in terms of how it plays out in the cannabis space, cannabis is a cool space because, well, it's sort of new, and so that allows it to be created during a time when we can have conversations that many other industries didn't get to have at their inception. And then also, it allows us to talk about lots of different kinds of diversity, so not just like racial and gender or sex, but also economic and experiential. There's a lot of people who have experienced a lot of hardship in the name of cannabis in the past. And I would like to see more opportunities open up for those people to get clean, so to speak, and come into the space. And so I'm hopeful that our online training program is a little tiny piece of that for some people. But then I'd really like to, collaborate with others, which is another piece of what I've been really excited about here, is getting the opportunity to work with a lot of the women and men in this room, but a lot of women that we've been able to collaborate with, which has been really an exciting opportunity. I could talk forever, so I don't have the words to the goal.
Both of you have been terrific. I love both the origin story and your perspective on the issues, so keep it going.
Oh, absolutely, and I will keep mine to the because I can get long-winded as well. It's hard to not get long-winded when you're talking about cannabis, because cannabis business is so many different aspects of life. But I'm Nicole Ross, and I am COO and also founder of Lure Labs, a provisional medical marijuana license winner here in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio. What we will be doing in Dayton is processing edibles, tinctures, oils, and concentrates from the raw form into an oil. And the process was a unique process because you are in markets that are limited. And my background started in California when we were kind of guerrilla style, doing high-end dining with cannabis. And it was kind of one of those transitions in my life where it was like become real poor trying to be a musician and a songwriter, or get into an industry where I know people consume cannabis at a large scale. And at that point in time, it was kind of one of those like, okay, I don't want to tell my mom because I'm from Ohio, it's supposed to be a gateway drug. I don't want to just always be hiding in the back corner with my friends smoking right there. Let's go to the party. So we wanted to be able to do something that was uniquely different. And merging food together with cannabis was an opportunity for people to break bread together and to really open up and have conversations. So that intention and that milestone that we created back in 2012, 2013, my business partner, her name is Chef Andrea Drummer. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with her, but she has been on a lot of different platforms, Cooking on High. She just actually won the license in West Hollywood to open up the first on-site consumption restaurant as a black woman. And so it's really exciting because this is an industry that is so new, and we can right now, by you being in this room today, is showing the diversity that we need to continue on to be able to have a unique platform that's going to build every void, not just one. And it is the green rush, but we're not just looking for the money. We're looking for opportunities to be a platform for people like myself. I want to be able to usher in opportunities for minorities, for women, for veterans, because there's not a space for people that look like me in a lot of other industries. So this is something that we're creating our own. At first, we were saying to ourselves, like, we need to put a white face in front of us in order to move forward. That was a conversation that was really happening at a point in time, but now we have our own seat at the table because we were very intentional about the work we wanted to do and how we wanted to serve here in the community. So now that we're in Ohio, I get to do this with my family, and it's a really big thing for me, because now I'm not transitioning just the idea of cannabis, but I'm transitioning to the mindset of people who thought differently of it before. You know, it was something that wasn't uniquely talked about in my household. So now my mother is excited because she's now entering into a platform where, from her being a nurse, she can really look at the education, and she can really look at the chemical compounds with cannabis. And now we're working with women throughout the whole process, and it's exciting because you can see the change happening, and it doesn't have to be a closed door conversation. It can be an open conversation like we're having today. So thank you for the solution. This is not a problem anymore. There was a problem, and now there's a solution that's created. If we continue to create solutions, we're going to continue to win. So we're excited to be a part of this experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Kevin is here. He knows me. My name is Alicia Reeves. Everyone calls me Allie, A-L-L-Y. I work with the Cleveland School of Cannabis. I am now the lead admissions officer there. I've been ripping and running, going back and forth from Cleveland. That's where I'm based out of. I'm from originally. And I'm here now in Columbus to work. We've been in service, and I've been with the school since May 2017. I came in as an intern, and I've worked very, very hard for 2 years. I tell everyone I work 9 days a week, 90 hours a week, and that's true. I work very hard because my background, I speak for the ordinary people, and diversity to me definitely means this room, like you said, Nicole. And I'm gonna be honest, I have been blessed to be able to work in the same space with women like Wendy. Her husband Tim has allowed me and connected with me to allow my platform outside the school, which is called Midwest Candle Women, where I fight very, very hard to try to gain resources so we can have opportunities in the industry. We already know the world is segregated and racist and all that stuff, guys. We know that. But now I truly see hope because of diversity. We need to work together. That's how we can change things in the state. Michigan is a true testimony of how they got adult use. And I know we cannot, as Ohioans, let Michigan outdo us. We should be fighting every single day so we can have the same opportunity. I am so humbled and blessed to be able to know advocates and patients in the state that have fought before I got here. Like I said, I used to be a coach. I coached high school basketball. I coached at a rec center before. But now look at the people that are here. Look around you. It's beautiful. I actually threw a picnic last year, July 22nd, on my girlfriend's birthday. I'm sorry, my love. But I'm also a lesbian, so look at all the different things that I have to face just as a black woman. I'm black, I'm from Cleveland. LeBron left us, I'm a lesbian, and now we have medical cannabis here. We should be excited. It's not that it won't happen, it's when will it happen. That's what we should truly be saying to each other. I've had the pleasure of working with this man right here. He's a co-founder of Goodall Farms. It's a very large 11.1 farm in Cleveland, Ohio. They're one of our connections with the school. There's a multitude of jobs because guess what? The job lady is here, Michelle Blaine. She works for us now. So after you complete our education, which it is a true investment, we have 2 locations now, like I said before, one in Cleveland, one in Columbus, 3700 Corporate Drive, Kevin. Suite 125. But we have opportunities, but you do have to invest. We've been able to connect with a lot of different people, and me, myself, I know at least 15 to 20% of these people in here right now because we've worked together, we've built something together. So what I say to diversity, screw that, let's work together. Let's all find a way, find a solution right now today. Let this not be the last time we all meet, but let us find a way. California is 20 years ahead of us, and that's because everybody is allowed in that industry to get resources so they can have opportunities. Opportunities. That's what we need. Thank you.
I'm just here agriculture and cannabis just today. So my background is I graduated here at Ohio State from 2015, degree in agriculture. I specialize in horticulture, and since then I've maintained rain gardens here in Columbus, and then from there I went to Cleveland after I got a job offer at Buckeye Relief, and I was really, really excited about it. It's my dream job. I'm really happy about it. Diversity for me though is like, I really want to see it explode. Right now it's kind of stagnant and it needs to take off, and I really want to be proactive about inviting and diversity into this industry. Yes.
So I'm going to build off that last comment by Carmen because it really leads into my next question, which is to the extent that there's interest, and my sense from the audience that there is, in moving the industry even further ahead on these diversity sets of issues, is that a job? It's a job for everyone for sure, but is it something that you as workers in the industry feel like government can help with, or is your attitude to some extent, just get out of the way, government, make sure it's a level, playing field for everybody, don't let the cronies come in and, have the old boy network, be at the forefront, and, Ohio's own John Boehner is often, perhaps rightly put on the, look, he's against it until he can make some money from it, and now he's at the front of the line and getting all the invitations, and so, is it, boy, if we just let this industry run free, we'll take care of diversity on our own, or is it, the government, there are certain things the government can do, there's certain things we'd like to see Ohio try to do, obviously, as many know, HB 523 tried to do a set-aside for certain licenses, and that was struck down because that sometimes happens with law and government. So just anybody who wants to sort of speak to, what are the keys, what particularly is the role for government, the role for the industry, and how can we ensure that the kind of momentum of diversity I'm feeling from this panel carries forward, doesn't become stagnant as Carmen's worried about. This one's working, I think.
Hello, baby.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I cannot. I'll just like.
You know this one's magic.
Magic one. There's the magic one. All right. To touch on this point with that specifically, I don't know, if the government really. I'm just going to kind of let that kind of just. So from me personally, I think it all comes down to the individual voices within the organizations themselves. It's really up to women and just the diversity within the organizations to really speak up and say, hey, this is how things should be, and we should have an equal voice and everything. And I really truly think that it comes down to the individual organizations. And want to go ahead? You're good. Talk to me about that.
And to add to that, it starts in our community. It starts to be able to be the representation that we need to see, and then not, if we see something that is inappropriate or not building to the culture that you feel comfortable with, speak up and say something about it. We have to be able to provide the opportunities amongst ourselves, and if we can't provide the opportunity amongst ourselves, the government sure isn't going to try to provide it. So speaking to the minority set-aside that was shot down, when we applied, there was a minority set-aside in place. And I remember going to an actual meeting and being told, well, you just have to measure up. Well, guess what? We did. So in that place, we have to continue walking like you're talking. You gotta say, okay, now we're not going to do it in a set-aside that's going to be provided by the state. We're going to provide it amongst our culture. We're going to provide it amongst our organization. We're going to provide it amongst each other because we're the ones that's going to be doing the work. So if we're going to be doing the work, we got to start doing it together. And that's how you're going to create that trickle of a movement, of an opportunity that is different from others, because cannabis is different. You're talking about a plant that has to have hundreds of thousands of dollars just to secure it. So if you're talking about that, then let's really talk about some opportunities when we can move in numbers and really speak out loud about the opportunity. So, anybody else?
I'll just say too, it also takes us collecting those signatures, going out and educating people, with not just with the school, in your communities. I have been screaming to the top of my lungs to every single person that I know, because I know that you can either have a healthier life, you can have a healthier career, you can be happy going to work. And that takes us trying to figure out how to decriminalize the law as well. So advocates like Priscilla Harris, who's here, who goes out to those gas stations and parks like we were last year trying to decriminalize the city of Cleveland with Sensible Movement. We came up short, but it was still a feat because we still collected and educated at least Cleveland on how the law can actually help you stay out of jail. I know a million people that are locked up right now that are pissed right now because marijuana is legal in the state with just medical. They don't have, they're master cultivators, they're dispensary owners. They've been producing and selling this product since day one. So now it's time for us to change the law so we can actually provide opportunities and resources for everyone. Thank you.
Now that my nerves have shook up just a little bit, the one big thing that I found to be an issue in my personal experience in getting into this industry is that, like, in high school, I didn't even know what horticulture was. And I'm a huge plant geek. Like, that's all I am. I'm a just outrageous plant nerd. And that bothers me that there was no education. There was none. And it took me to getting into a entry-level position at a nursery to be like, oh my God, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Plants are it. This is it. And then I was like, oh my God, cannabis is right around the corner. So just feel like it was all about being patient. But like for me, we really need to be on the front lines with our education. We need to be inspiring the children, especially not just in rural Ohio about agriculture, but everywhere. Absolutely, like from home gardening to acreage to cattle, it just all around. Like it needs to be everywhere. And like for me, graduating in agriculture, it was really like boring as far as diversity. Like it was really basic, and that was disturbing to me. And I really want to see more diversity in it because it just brings more ideas and more light onto situations and problems, and it's better for problem solving altogether. So I really would love to see the government step up in education for agriculture, because that's a big inspiration for a lot of students out there.
Great. I have a sense there's some in this crowd that may have some things to say, or at least some things to ask, and so I want to make sure we have ample time with this great group for questions. I've got a couple more I'm happy to ask, but let me right now take the pulse of anybody who has a particular question. Remember, again, this is our sort of diversity panel. We're going to have a legislative updates panel next, but just want to give you all a chance to share your voice or your perspective on this issue. It can be, if it's short, I don't know, that's a good question.
This one.
We have a diversity of mics. They work in the but it looks like Wendy's going to play hostess and send the mic around if anybody has questions, thoughts, things they want to share. There we go. I feel it.
Hello. I'm just wondering if we might have a timetable anytime soon for patients to be able to grow their own at home so they're not paying $10,000 a year.
That's me as the lawyer saying we got to change the law, right? And home grow is something that's been a big topic in a variety of settings. One of the challenges, and we can talk about this now, we can talk about the next panel and beyond, is as an industry develops in a state, there's actually pro-reformers who are anti-home grow, right? Because it means that people can get their own product at home without going to dispensaries, without sort of paying for the product that way. And so one of the things you've seen across the nation is if you don't get home grow built into the early law, it's hard to get a change to include home grow because the industry that's been established and has spent an extraordinary amount of money building themselves based on a certain economic model doesn't want to allow home grow to be a part of that. I think actually, ironically, that's one of the things that might support a ballot initiative for full rec, because there may be fights between different advocacy groups. One set with money will say, hey, we don't want to start businesses if there's a home grow as part of it, whereas another group will say, what's the point of doing this without home grow?
And the quality difference, though, is just so drastically different, especially when you're looking at purchasing multiple tents and you open them up and they're all different kinds of tents with the same strength. One may work better for you, but the other one doesn't work at all, and you're sitting there going, it's $50.
Thoughts on home grow?
I feel like it's all necessary. I mean, because there's gonna be people who are not gonna be able to have the opportunity to grow and still either have access, and there's gonna be people who wanna grow and have their own access. So I think it's just something that needs to be worked out amongst both parties and saying, there's enough light for everybody to shine.
A total spin-off from home growing. I was curious to how is the diversity of the consumers or patients actually coming through Terrasana? Is it very diverse or is it pretty much biased?
My voice carries. No, I would say, honestly, the amount of patients we've gotten in has been extremely diverse. It's heartbreaking when you get, younger generations in, and a lot of them are very sick. A lot of it is stage 4 cancers, pain. But then we have a wide range. The average age for patients in the state is 40 to 59. So we do have a very wide range of diversity within the patients themselves, and the diversity within the qualification list also. And I think it really comes down to, educating ourselves at the dispensary, to know exactly what to help recommend and help those patients specifically. But yeah, to your point, that it's been very, very diverse, which has been really great to see. And a lot too, we've had a lot of, just brand new patients come in that have never tried medical cannabis before. And that's always kind of an exciting experience when they come in, to kind of have that opportunity to be able to educate them. More or less just even on the basics of cannabis, the typical buzzword, this is THC and CBD, but for a lot of these people that are brand new to the industry, it's really important to start with the basics to really kind of help that education and to spread that knowledge.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a master's student in the Department of Horticulture, actually here. So I have a question partially towards you, but feel free, everybody, to answer. A lot of the problems with a lot of different cultivation facilities is that there is a lack of horticultural knowledge and understanding. I recently toured a facility in Canada, or cannabis, and there's a number of ways that they could have improved their specific model, and they're one of the biggest producers. A lot of people in the U.S. are very protective about their growing knowledge and their cultivation practices, but is there a way that we can increase communication and try and increase education about the best ways to produce cannabis, the best ways to grow it, the ways to make it the most safe and effective for other people?
In my experience at Buckeye Relief, we are really concerned about hiring people with higher education. We really want to bring in these really sharp minds. Our consultants are more of the home grow kind of guys. They started 10, 15 years ago, and they're the ones consulting us because we're just a bunch of plant geeks. We just know plants in general, but we don't know how. None of us really knew how to grow this one particular crop, and so they were there to train us to how to particularly grow this crop. So that's where we're at now, and we're becoming experts in it as we go, and we're all learning together, which is what I really love. Because we're actually we're mind melding those people who have the experience and the people who have formal education, but we have all that together in one.
And that's actually what we're doing in an online curriculum in cultivation basics through Leaf Medic. We have it almost finished being completed. We've partnered with somebody who has commercial cultivation experience. We're the educators, we're building the program. He's giving us the information. But over time, I would love to have that reviewed by various cultivators because I have a sense, both in the processing community and the cultivation community, that it's kind of an art. Everybody has a different approach to it. So I would love to see that curriculum get enriched by people giving us collaborative feedback and helping us build that, because I do think that there is a lot of different ways to approach this, and I do think people have been very proprietary, very cautious about sharing their information. So,
yes, absolutely. Everyone's picking stones at this point. We're all having problems and nobody wants to talk about it, and it's a big problem.
I will say this though, the Cleveland School of Cannabis is also state approved by the Ohio State Board of Career and Colleges since November 2017, and we definitely have a relationship with Buckeye Relief where our students that are in the horticulture program or in the executive program, they actually are interning there and getting their hands-on experience. They've been through the BCI, FBI background check. So that's one, you've hired a lot of our students there.
More than 50.
Yeah, so if you want some information, I'll give you my cards. Everyone my card after you leave.
Carmen, are there some post-harvest jobs coming up?
Yes, absolutely. There's jobs coming up all the time right now. We're expanding.
It will be higher.
Right there, right?
Hi, I'm Brian Easley from Indiana, LA, California. I see the diversity and everything, and in my participation in this market is from a commodity standpoint, because it's already a commodity. Okay, and so what we're seeing in California and Washington State and Oregon and so forth is people come in the medical space, but there's not enough prescribers to prescribe, right? And so then the black market thrives. So I've heard no one here, I've heard you talk about your medical, this is the medical space here today, but where is your medical community working with you? And how are you working with the medical community? Because if you don't have any prescribing, prescriptive clients, how are you going to sell your product if you're not recreational?
I know there's over 377, the last time I checked, maybe a couple months ago, doctors that are actually licensed here to recommend. How
are you?
Well, I work with Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. She has her own facility here in Columbus. She is, it's called Green Hill Harvest. So what she's providing is education. She's also going to be an instructor at the Cleveland School of Cannabis teaching two subjects. So she has a platform where she's able to recommend. So we kind of connect, and then she's able to come educate and say how she's able to recommend patients. So it's kind of like, the school connects with a lot of different relationships. Yeah.
We have a board of advisors.
Right.
We have a board of advisors, and many of them are medical professionals who review our curricula, and then we partner with a number of certified to recommend physicians who also provide us with feedback. I mean, I would really love to see the Ohio Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. I've been trying to talk with Tim about a couple of ideas that we've had where there could be kind of focus groups that could meet, not focus groups, like support groups, that sounds kind of weird, but like collaborative information exchange portals, because I think that there needs to be a little bit more intersection of that kind of information.
It needs to be more education.
Cross-pollinate.
And I would say from the nonprofit standpoint also, we have several doctors that sit on our board. In Terrasana specifically, we work with the clinics, and we have a physician that's actually up in Cleveland also.
But I think that question is a question about the diversity of patients coming in is a good example of diversity can mean and needs to mean so many different things in this space, right? If you don't have a diversity of doctors working in a diversity of communities to make recommendations, you're not going to have a diversity of patients. You're still going to have a black market serving a variety of needs. And one of the things that gets to even that question is we don't have good data, right? This is me now talking like the law professor I am, right? It's impossible to collect data on who isn't going to get recommendations because there isn't a doctor in their community they feel comfortable with, or who, we hear this, I think rightly so, from a variety of communities. I don't trust even a state legal system while it's still federally illegal. I still think I can get in trouble. Some of us on this panel still have gotten in trouble in a variety of settings, and that necessarily different people, for understandable reasons, have different abilities to bear the risk that necessarily comes with being involved in this space, and it's very hard to even assess where that's at. I think the doctors are a huge part. Certainly, I think New York and Minnesota especially have been states where the development of their medical cannabis program over time has been thwarted by a lack of doctors being able to be in the system.
And I think that fear is at the heart of a lot of this. That's what I was getting at with my support group comment. It's like, I think that everybody is a little bit fearful about sharing that they have an interest. I think there's a lot of clinicians out there who are passionate about seeing their patients have access to this that will not get their CTR because they just don't really want to put their child in that water, So I think that as back to the government question that you asked earlier, I think if a variety of institutions could open up, relax, become a little bit more tolerant and accepting of this, it would change a lot of the dynamics even within our program because people will be less afraid.
Right.
I have another question here for you.
Yeah, Professor Berman just hit on this. When I see diversity, there's a lot of diversity here, but I don't see a lot of generational diversity. And to me, that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks, or not stumbling blocks, but blocks to this industry is how do we, or what efforts are being made to get that generation of, my parents, our parents, whatever, because they still think Reefer Madness is a documentary. And I know we talk about education, but what's being done at the industry level to educate that generation?
it's still the education. I mean, just like the people sitting here at the tables, my grandmother is more aware of what's happening right now because of us being just in the industry and in the space. So if you don't have an opportunity to even be a focal point to have a conversation, then there's no conversation at all. And until you have somebody there who can speak on it, because there's a lot of misinformation as well. And us in Ohio, this is not an industry that's new. This has been around for a very long time. It's just a new program for Ohio. So it's a real borderline where, for us as processors, I can't have just direct conversations with patients because I'm not a retail space. I am a processor that makes medicines for patients. So it's important for us to have those relationships with certified to recommend doctors who can actually help identify, because proper dosing is not a thing. People say it starts low, goes slow. Like, what does that mean? Every hour do I do that? Or do I do that one time? So there's a lot of education across the board that has to be done. And again, it starts with right now, just having a conversation, us going back to our family, our friends, and just sharing information. Knowledge is power, so we have to be able to have the right information to do it.
I think another thing that can happen is, I think that with sometimes with the older population, that fear thing works in our favor a little bit. I think there are more older people who are facing chronic pain problems, never-ending pain, and they're afraid of opioids. They live in Ohio. They've seen what's happening. So they're like, okay, and that's my parents. They're 83 and 77, and they've both been willing to try this because they're afraid for their problems to get hooked, to have whatever that they have a lot of other fears that are sort of driving them towards this. So that's not working in our favor.
The oldest patient I've seen register is 91.
I have time for one more question, and I have the last question for the panel, and then over there, and then Wendy. Two more questions.
Hello, everybody. My name is Seth Moore. I'm a student and I also study chemistry at Ohio State. So, a big question that we're facing today is, how are we going to enter a more diverse stage? What is the government going to do about it? And how are we going to educate both our patients and our doctors? And the answer is, we don't have it right now. And this is because marijuana is a very diverse plant. There are not only is there differences in the THC and CBD ratios in every single plant, but there are also miniature cannabinoids that are suspected to affect the way that everyone feels. And this will even differ based on how the plant is grown and also the conditions under which the plant has gotten here, whether it was grown in Ohio, or all the way over in California. And so, me as a data analytics student, I want to solve this using artificial intelligence. Me, along with my two partners over here, John and Devin, are starting an app called StrainSource. And our plan is to survey users using a private platform under their...
Is there a question?
Absolutely. Well, your main question is asked how these doctors are going to get informed.
What's the address of the chip?
Other questions here are asking how these doctors are going to get informed or how they see one answer the next stage. Well, no, we're actually interested in how the data itself is going to build itself.
So we've got a nice attention, we appreciate that. We're going to have networking opportunities during our break and afterward, so I can't start meeting a lot of people in this space.
So there is people who are collaborating on information and research. I mean, this is a federally illegal drug per se. So it is hard to do the research and the data from if you don't have the access to be able to do the research and the data. So speaking to a lot of different companies who are on the R&D side, and cannabis is tech. It is an important thing, and there's not one facet of this plant that can't be untouched. So you're having marketing companies, attorneys, law firms, technology companies that are trying to merge that science with the cannabinoid system and the endocannabinoid system in our bodies. So I'm very excited about that because that's forward thinking. That's how you can now remove those fears, because now I know what specifically works for me. And I don't have to guess, and I don't have to start slow and go low or low, slow, whatever you want me to do. So I know specifically how I need to move with specific.
We can also just touch on our arms.
Yeah, start low and slow.
Another question here, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, I really don't have a question. My name is Victoria Kahn, and I've kind of been dealing with this activism thing for a while, and cannabis for a while, but I kind of wanted to backtrack to the horticulture, the education of children, youth in our system. And I wanted to suggest to you, Ohio State University School of Agriculture, Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Science. We have the Master Gardeners program. I'm part of that. That's what we do. And I've been trying to get them over in Licking County involved. And of course we have to do it legally. But between you, me, them, him, this is a whole, it's a big deal. All across the state.
Yes.
Lots of people.
Yes.
So I just want to say that.
There's the other guy up here who's been trying to ask a question for the last 20 minutes.
Hello. I want to bring the conversation back to cultural diversity for a second. The question was posed earlier, can government help? And not in government, but I think most definitely government can help. And another venue that I've worked in before, the African American Chamber of Commerce was really, really pivotal as far as being the connection between government and private enterprise. So my question here is, A, how many MBE companies do we have represented in the room? Do we have any? A lot. And if so, what is the Central Ohio African American Chamber of Commerce doing to essentially be a part of this conversation? So I think that really could be great. So I think that could be a really, really great bridge. And I'd love to hear from you.
So I'll finish the panel, not only by thanking everybody for questions and for the panelists for encouraging us to go down the line to specifically ask and to build off this question. What kind of institution would you like to see enter this space? Is it one that's just minority cannabis businesses? Is it to have existing minority business community institutions, build out a cannabis section? This is actually being discussed on the law side, right? Should there just be a special set of cannabis lawyers? Should there be a division of the traditional lawyer group that does cannabis law and all that?
I think it all sounds good.
All right.
There's so much movement.
I enjoy all the above answers, but I love this is what I'd especially like to see get developed or do more of in the days ahead.
So just to talk about my experiences personally, just working in the dispensary the past month and a half, we've really been able to work hands-on with patients, one-on-one, to really get to know them, to know their history with cannabis specifically. And then even with the nonprofit also, we've been at this for over a year now, and just the amount of people, families, children, loved ones, just everyone kind of has their own story and their own voice for their own passions for this industry specifically. The more people you talk to, everyone in this industry is very passionate. We all have our own reasons for being here today. You all have your own voice and your own passion for it. It's really important that you voice that. For me, I really think it would be important to have some kind of an Ohio patient union, something where, we kind of have something like that kind of sort of on social media right now, where you have a lot of these different groups that are kind of, there's a lot of comments and product reviews and, what can we do differently, but to really kind of open up that space and maybe make it more of a positive discussion about the program, because there is a lot of things about this program that do need to be teased out. This is a brand new program. There's a lot of stuff that we do need to kind of navigate with each other, and I cannot preach enough that we do all really have to work together to make this program sustainable. And it comes down to, us as individuals and making sure that we are going out into the world, and in Ohio specifically, and speaking positively about this industry, because it has taken us a long time to get there, like Victoria, Mary Jane Warden, because these women have been at this for a long time as activists and legislative specifically. And, for a lot of us that have been in this for so long, it really is a beautiful thing. I mean, when we had the first day of opening in Terrasana in Central Ohio, I was a bawling mess, because it was a very, truly, it was a very humbling experience. I was very honored, and it was really just incredible to kind of just think back and think about what, where we've come, I'm going to get choked up again. It's really a cool, it is. It's just been an amazing week for this industry, and I think there's a lot of negativity about this industry specifically also, and we understand your frustrations as patients all the way up to, the cultivators, and, there's a lot of different frustrations. There's a lot to learn from each other in order to work with each other, and I think that the most important thing we need to do is to stay positive with each other, stay positive, at the dispensaries, at the clinics. Thank you so much for being patient with our industry as a whole. There are a lot of really, really good, amazing people that are working really hard to make sure that this is the best program for our patients.
Do I got a patient union? Do I got other suggestions?
Oh, goodness. Well, something that I would prioritize is not necessarily great for my company or necessarily something that I really think that we should have an institution, we should have legal institutions that are reviewing some of the
previous convictions. There's a lot of people out there who have been punished for trying to do this. I lost my job as a really minor consequence. There are people who are in jail. And I have really no prescription as to exactly how we do this. That's not my field of expertise. I mean, I could conduct focus groups of different cultures getting to know each other, but I don't really know how to solve that exactly, other than to say, I do think that we need to, back to that fear, the fear point that I brought up earlier, we need to back off of that fear. We need to speak truth about the science, about the plant, about the people who have used it, about the people who grow it, about the people who handle it, about all of this. And that truth needs to shine brighter, and it needs to have legal foundation or legs beneath it.
Thank you.
I think it's anything that's a collective that fits in a variety of avenues, because again, as everybody discussed, there's so many different angles to approach this one plant. And I think just like Navo, I spoke there and we were talking about marijuana in the workplace, and one of the things that we talked about was accommodation and how you can accommodate people who are patients in the workplace, because we're not asking if you took your Xanax last night or just other different pharmaceutical prescribed drugs, but if a patient is getting random tested and they're a patient in the program or just a consumer, they can lose their job, just as Karen spoke about. So I mean, I feel like we just gotta be collectively collaborating with each other on different ideas, and then really just doing the work. It's not really a talking thing anymore for me. It's about doing the work. I'm only asking for assets, not liabilities. My whole avenue in this industry can be a major liability in my life, and I'm working amongst a lot of beautiful people who have risked their lives and their time and their family, with this plan, and this plan is for us all. So it's just, we just have to just stick to the course, be intentional, and just have those resources in place, because we want to be able to create this model and do it somewhere else, So.
I just want to say that this industry needs every single thing that every other industry needs. So there needs to be a minority chamber for women and for African Americans and all minorities that are trying to fight their way to get in. There needs to be laws that are created, if you are a minority, that will not put you in jail for millions of years for a plant that can grow without cultivator. There needs to be everything that you said we need. And we need to have this conversation again. I can't wait to hear State Rep Bremen and everybody talk about the laws, because I feel like that's the only way that this industry will be able to succeed, and diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Carmen, last word.
All right, the government put us in this ditch where we are today, and we've had to crawl our way out, and I think that they should help us get out.
All right. Please join me in an extra round of applause for this panel. We'll take about a 10-minute break. There's some snacks outside, a chance to connect with the panelists and each other, but we're going to try to reassemble here by 5:30 so we have ample time for our next panel.
in a career in the materials test lab and got very much into standards, testing standards, things like that for materials, hence the director of quality portion. I think Ohio as a state has done something really good with how many ailments they have on their list. They've done a great job with that list. Rolling out, getting medicine to the patients hasn't gone as well. It's not gone great in any state, so I think, just get that medicine out, get some processes improved, and get the people what they need so that these patients can get what they need will be super helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks. My name is John Izzo. I'm an attorney with a firm here in Columbus, Grant McGovern. We do represent several folks in the industry in various different aspects, whether it's processors, dispensaries, physicians, cultivators. So the views I express are not necessarily those of my clients or my law firm, but they will definitely be my own. I can't give Ohio an F because we do have something out there, but it's got to be somewhere down there. When we look at what the idea was when 523 was first passed and where it is today, in a lot of ways I think somebody should have been scratching their head saying this isn't going to work. This industry has a lot of masters. You've got the Department of Commerce involved. You've got the Ohio State Board of Pharmacy. You've got the State Medical Board of Ohio. And then there's also a fourth master that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's local government, because they get to decide a lot about where places are going. And God forbid, if after you've already had your facility built, the city decides to put a park or a school across the street from you, you've got to move unless the director of the Department of Commerce says it's okay for you to stay there. I think some things that should have been better thought out was how long the challenges would take when somebody was denied. I believe there were some cultivators who were waiting over a year to get their hearing. The other aspects seem to work quicker. I will say that for the State Medical Board, some of you might not agree with the ailments that they are proposing to go ahead and add to the already existing list, but they did get physicians out there trained and ready to get their certificates to recommend. The Board of Pharmacy, they actually might even not be well known, but when the Board of Pharmacy was going to accept the applications for dispensaries online, what they didn't expect was everybody was going to file their applications during the last 6 hours. And that, as you can imagine, caused a problem.
Any professor would have known.
Now, luckily they reopened up the application process, but once again, that's something they should have taken into account. So I think better planning would have been nice on the part of the state. I think it is a learning process as things go, and I think obviously the only way we can go is up, but we're definitely going up.
Hi everyone, my name is Juanita Brand. I am State Representative for House District 12. I am so grateful to be here. This is some part that I chose to look into and no one chose me. So I'm not having been bought. No one paid me to be here. I'm here on my own free will. And it's something that I was very much interested in before I ever got to the State House. So I always like to clarify that because a lot of times you meet people and you look at their campaign donations and they've been bought by a pharmaceutical company. No, that's not me. So you say, what is marijuana in Ohio doing? I think we're still in the infancy stage. We have people at the State House, which I wish my colleagues, it looked as diverse as this room looks, but it does not. So when it comes to experience and the knowledge base, we don't have that at the State House. So we need more groups like this, not just being in these silos of Ohio State, but come to the State House and speaking to us reps. I personally go out and I seek knowledge. So in my in my personal time, I spend my own time and my own money going out and finding people who were part of the cannabis movement. No matter if it was a cannabis group, a cannabis school, if you own a farm. But that's what good legislation does when you're trying to produce it. You go out and go find those people and not so much wait for the people to find you. So that's what we have to do more on the state side, is go find you guys, like I'm here right now, and I want to hear from you because I'm the one who makes the laws. State reps only do two things. Well, we do a lot of things. We do two main things. We make laws that for the entire state, so you talk about Senate Bill 523, So there is a legislator who made that. I can make a law to help us legalize marijuana. Okay? But to have that happen, we need the people like you educating us on what's the best practice of how to implement that law, and then kind of shaping the ground to get other people to co-sponsor, we'll talk about that a little bit later, a bill that can be put forth, because you guys give me a lot of great ideas, but it's my colleagues who might not be all for that. So we have to, elections have consequences. So as you guys are voting for people, and if your interest is cannabis, vote for someone who is with your interests. And I say that for everyone in the room, I don't care how nice they are, if the people you are voting into office are not for your interest, you're going to be stuck here talking to a bunch of people, except for myself, who cannot make a change when it comes to those laws. Thank you.
So I see a lot of familiar faces here that have been in the education space at Columbus Botanical Depot, where I provide education. My name is Allie, I come from a background of exercise physiology. I graduated from Ohio State as well with my bachelor's and my master's in ex-phys. And in exercise physiology, you learn a lot about normative physiology, and then you learn what shifts when you exercise. So I come from a background of really being focused in health and wellness, and that's how I came to cannabinoids, into the cannabinoid space. And right now, what I see is the gap in education. So as far as House Bill 523, we have a program, it is operational. However, it doesn't feel as if it is for the plant. It doesn't feel as if it is for the people, and it doesn't feel as if it is for the planet. So there's a lot of space where it could see improvement. As far as the planet, the way that the cannabis that isn't utilized is made so it's non-biodegradable is absolutely ridiculous. As far as the people, that education is the missing link right now, and I understand that the intention of the program was to create regulation and to create a very safe program. But it's safe to the point of maybe not even being able to really get to speak to patients and share about this plant and share about the potential. And one of the things that bothers me most is it's called the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program. Marijuana is a word of propaganda against this plant. Every single person in this room moving forward would refer to the plant as cannabis, which is what it is. And I'm not going to go down the whole tangent about how that specific verbiage is how the doctors, medicine was taken away from doctors because they didn't understand the word marijuana versus cannabis. I also want to touch on Senate Bill 57. So I come from the CBD space. The 2018 Farm Bill redefined hemp as an agricultural crop. I don't want to stir up anything with the Ohio Board of Pharmacy. Obviously, they have a lot in their hands, not only regarding pharmacies and everything that goes along with that, but now this new dispensary program. But it's created a lot of confusion, the statement that they made in August about CBD, because it is a cannabinoid being part of the OMMCP. And so I'm excited that Senate Bill 57, which would do the same on a state level, it would redefine hemp as an agricultural crop. I'm excited that it's moving forward. As far as concern, it is my belief and it is my understanding through my education that hemp, cannabis, these are plants that can be beneficial to most everybody. There are multiple forms of ingestion, and I think that moving forward, we need to protect public access to these plants and to people, and education is that missing link between this powerful plant-based medicine and the people who get benefit from it.
Lauren, and I manufacture Meg's fertilizer, which is an organic cannabis fertilizer, hence the name Meg's. I don't know if anybody knows Meg's County Gold or anything like that. I also manufacture a water-soluble CBD line with tinctures, rubs, and creams. And I also just founded the Ohio Hemp Farmers Cooperative. I would like to think that I helped introduce and pass the current hemp bill that is in the House right now. Me and thank you Tim Johnson knocked many doors, and that's exactly what people need to do is go down there and talk to your legislators, talk to your senators. Don't be afraid. You need to call them and ask them, set up an appointment. And we would go in there, and of course they're never available or they're never there. So you say, okay, when are they going to be there? Next Tuesday, next Wednesday. A lot of them are there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because that's their business day in the office. So if you go there knocking doors, those are your 2 best days to get in and talk to them or set up appointments on those 2 days. With our current law with hemp and stuff, I just had the first hemp summit in November. And when it started, I just wanted to educate some farmers. I thought maybe 30 to 50 farmers might be there, and so we were going to have it at our farm. We farm about 4,500 acres in central Ohio. So when it came down, a week or 2 before the date, there was over 250 farmers that wanted to come to this hemp summit. So that blew me out of the water. So we moved it to the Delaware County Fairgrounds for November. But the hemp farmers cooperative that I just formed, we have over 70 people that are in it right now. And we don't even have an approved hemp in Ohio, so it's a huge interest in Ohio all over. So with our current medical program, there is a lot wrong with it. It is a step in the right direction, I guess. It's one way, you get your foot in the door, I guess you would say. But we need to introduce adult use, regulation, and taxation of cannabis. I did just quickly the other day, we looked at the rec states. There's about maybe 10 of them. I'm not 10 or 12 rec states, but I went through all the best practices, I guess, went through what states have the best laws and stuff like that and put together. Michigan's very good. So they're one of the best adult use states. So if we could, I kind of like improved on that, lesser the fees. There's a lot going on that, everybody else has to contribute to too. So the first step is getting a hold of your legislators, telling them that you support cannabis use in Ohio and to start regulating it and taxing it so they can, get their money from it too. So the state medical program, they put aside $1.5 million this year for lawsuits, and they, I believe, borrowed $4 million for upcoming lawsuits. So that tells you right there.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. They set aside $1.5 million this year for lawsuits.
Who did that? State budget, right?
The medical marijuana program.
Set aside $1.5 million for lawsuits and had to borrow $4 million?
I believe so.
That people sued them?
Yes, because they're anticipating that many people, that many lawsuits. So that tells you right there how failed the program is. These high fees and them trying to control only these, handful of people can do this, and you have to be a multimillionaire to get in the game. That's not the way it's set up. That's the only people you're hurting here are the patients. So they're the people who are paying for it. So, adult use is something we need to work for, home grow, stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Audra Sparks. I am part of Leaf Medic with Karen Korn, who was on the previous panel. I come into this basically as a patient. I am a chronic pain person, and I have had chronic pain for decades, most of my life. So I'm very happy that we have a program here in Ohio. As other people have alluded to, there are a lot of problems with it. We have a long way to go. And as Ali said, a lot of that gap is education. And that's really like at every level. That's for patients, that's for the recommending doctors, for the dispensary workers who are going to be working with patients. I think we've talked about that education, but I think that doctors, I've met a lot of the recommending doctors, and I'm a little skeptical of what education they got because of some of the things they say kind of hark to reefer madness still. So that's a little curious, and I think that they need to do better because they're talking to patients, and I think that they are still kind of pushing some of the fear stuff. Not all of the doctors, I've met a few, but I think that that's an issue that needs to be certainly addressed. And you know, this program is supposed to be for patients, and it's failing patients basically right now because there's not access. It's not affordable. It's expensive to get a card. And so, I mean, clearly it just needs to do better. I think the way they rolled this out, they stumbled a lot. I don't know how you open up a state program with 4 dispensaries and then, you know, trickling down. It's really hard. You know, we see maybe 30,000 people have gotten cards. I don't know exactly the number now. Maybe it's probably more than that. But less than half of them have actually been to a dispensary. These cards are at least $200. Some places are charging more. I think that's kind of random. I think that also needs to be addressed as like a flat price of what it costs to go see one of these recommending doctors to get a card. Because I've heard prices as high as $400, and I'm just like, this is crazy. And that just makes it harder for people to get to this medicine. So yeah, you know, I'm not going to rehash a lot of the things that the people have said. I think one of the things that I would like to see, as well as just making this, you know, let's move on this. People are losing money. Patients are suffering. A lot of people are upset. What I would like to see implemented into the program is more of a cannabinoid profile, not including terpene profiles. What the products that are at the dispensaries now are very high THC. There might be one strain or one variety that has a high CBD, and that is not going to cut it for medical use. People who want to use this medicine as medicine don't necessarily need the high THC, and they certainly don't need it alone. We need to see greater ratios of THC and CBD so that people have options so they can find the spot where they are getting the effects that they need. So I think that's huge. I know right now the testing labs are not testing for terpene profiles. I think that that would be huge because these terpenes have a lot of medicinal use, and actually those are the things that make each variety different. There's not an indica, there's not a sativa. The differences are in the terpenes. And I think that that is a thing, because we could create a Thank you. I think that we could see this plant used as like, we could really target and make specific medicines for each individual, because we all have different reactions to the same amount of the material, and so we each need to play around with that to find where our point is that is good and not too much and not too little. But we could really target and specialize and create like customized medicine for people if we could have these profiles available. I have some friends in Canada. I've seen what is available there, and you can search. I mean, they have over 100 different strains, and they have the ratios that are just like, it's amazing, and the terpene profiles.
I'll follow up on this, Audra, and thanks to everybody for, covering a range of issues from, ending to everything wrong, not a lot right with our current structure. But, that sounds like an industry, I don't want to call it problem, but issue rather than is government legislative issue. I don't think you're going to see a legislature that mandates, a certain set of chemicals in a variety of different products, but I suspect, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, there's also a customer base and commerce issue that if you don't have a wide range of customers accessing the medical program, you're not going to have industry players who are trying to serve a wide range of
Right.
profiles.
The state could ask for those terpene profiles to be tested at the labs. I know that at Hocking College, that lab, they have the capability to do that testing, but the state doesn't require it. So they could say.
So that's my great follow-up question for everybody. Please representative out of this, I'm going to make her respond to all of that. Which is, all right, let's think small to start and then we'll go to thinking big. One small change to the existing law that you'd love to see the General Assembly move forward on. I've got, at least on my list right now, strike marijuana and insert cannabis throughout the entire code. That's certainly true. That wouldn't take much, and it would actually be a big difference maker, but it's a small change, and that's kind of what I'd love to hear from all of you. Chime in as you see fit. We don't have to go down the line. Something that's, identifiable, very tangible. We were lucky enough to have a representative with us take notes of all these different work on with their colleagues. And so, something that, you see as just, an obvious problem in the existing statute or an obvious problem that's playing out as the industry unfolds right now, that you think, were you to have the legislative wand could fix relatively quickly? Is there something that comes to mind? Are there small answers that you would love to see addressed ASAP?
So to follow up what Audra was speaking to about physicians, and this is a very complex issue because we still need more physicians as part of the programming, but as of right now, they only need like 2 hours of CEUs or something. That is such a small amount of education. So to come back to education again, I think if we had better programming for physicians, and I guess coming to a government level, requiring more of our physicians. And again, I know it's complex because we don't want it to be too big of a barrier that they don't engage in the program, but I have way more than 2 hours of education. So, 2 hours is not enough. Not even enough to cover the endocannabinoid system, which you need to understand before you think you're going to prescribe this, recommend this as a medicine.
I have concerns about changing the requirements for physicians because physicians on their own go ahead and do their own research and they are required to make sure that they're knowledgeable about a topic. I'm afraid just because there's only about, I think there's less than 500 physicians in the state of Ohio right now who want that certificate to recommend. These physicians see the problems. And I'm glad I'm not in the House, Representative Brett, because there is a lot of work to be done, but I see the work being done at a different level. As long as medical cannabis is illegal under federal law, there are major problems with whatever happens. And everybody is going to be concerned. And everybody is going to be looking over their shoulders to see what's happening next. We've got a banking problem. There's currently enacted the SAFE Act, where Congress is trying to work on some sort of assurances. But every bank in the union is FDIC approved. And they don't want to be accused of money laundering because they're taking what is considered to be illegal money because it's part of the medical cannabis program. You've got similar problems. The IRS. Believe it or not, the IRS is fine as long as you pay your taxes on your medical cannabis program. But since it's illegal, to the best of my knowledge, you're not allowed any business deductions, which means you're being taxed on your gross. And that is a problem that a lot of the industry faces as well. As far as banking goes, FinCEN, the federal, I'm not going to say the right words, so I'll just say FinCEN. FinCEN has given guidelines to banks to say, you can go ahead and participate in this program if you want, but these are the guidelines you have to do. And generally speaking, banks are worried because that means they're going to have to file a suspicious activity report every time they get one of these deposits. So the way I see it is changes need to be made at a federal level to make things much easier on a state level. And really the changes I see eventually happening, and this is just my own opinion, is you're going to find a program that the feds do similar to what they're having done with the hemp program right now. States, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it and set up a program yourselves. We'll step away. But I really think the big problems are with the federal government and not necessarily with our own legislature. And I think also something we do need to remember too, the only reason we have House Bill 523 is because the state legislature was worried that there was going to be a vote, a referendum for legalizing cannabis as a whole. And the state government didn't want that. So what they did is they went ahead and pushed what they thought was the best program they could that would get by, and it did. So now I think we see the tweaks that need to be made. I don't think we're ever going to get cannabis regulated or at least priced out, have minimum prices like you see with liquor, with the state liquor agencies. Cannabis right now in Ohio is a medicine, and medicine is big business. And I think that's something that we always need to remember, that there is that business aspect when you're dealing with medicine. And that's what we've moved cannabis into, the medicine. Basically, it's a class 2, for those of you who are familiar with the class structure. It's a class 2, it's regulated, it's highly regulated, and until the feds make that tweak that we need done, I think the state is going to be a little bit stuck. I don't know if I want to hand it over to you, Representative Brent.
That sounds like you're answering off the comment. It's a really sad thing to say, but yeah. Others, before we get to Rep. Ryan, others have, suggestions, at least something the state can do. Although again, there's nothing they can do until the feds move. It's not a misguided view of the broader landscape.
I've got one. If we're doing one small thing, it would be to eliminate the no smoking.
Yes.
That one. I think I don't know. And just I call just follow up on the IRS. It is tricky, but you can get deductions. It's just working with your accounting firm to do it. It's a pain like everything else. But that's all.
Thank you. Other small changes or?
No, I agree. Smoking and terpene profiles, I think that would help the patients a lot. And that's easy that they can do that.
Well, one, I am taking notes. So I can definitely review upon this, but I want to make sure my eyes are not deceiving me because I don't need glasses, but I would be remiss to be sitting here and then not to acknowledge this person. I think this is our former minority leader, Tracy Maxwell Hurd. I'm sitting here staring at her. I even had to look at my phone a couple good times. But good people like herself is why somebody like myself is able to sit here at this panel right now. So thank you. I know you're sitting in the crowd. Thank you. So one of the things that I would personally do before we do anything else is decriminalize marijuana. We have made so we're talking about doing a lot of things about legalizing, making recreational marijuana, but I know tons of people related to me, people who are my constituents, who are still incarcerated right now. People who have been locked up because they were selling CBD oil, which has to do with hemp. So we have to deal with that portion of it before and I can't speak for other reps, before I can really seriously take anything forward with that. So that has to be the biggest step that we need to do. And that's going to be a hard journey because of the propaganda that goes with cannabis. And I like what she said about changing the message. I've sat down with numerous people who deal with cannabis, who deal with hemp, or who are just advocates overall. And I tell people, you have to change the message if you want people to go along with it. You got me sold. I've never smoked weed a day in my life. You can record me on that. You can ask my friends. But I know there is a need for it. When I went to Colorado myself, I saw what all it did for the state of Colorado when it came for their infrastructure, when it came for people being able to go to college. There is money in this. And when I think, as the ranking member of agriculture, the reason why I asked for ranking member, and I'm only a freshman, so I've only been elected to office since January 7th, but one of my requests to my minority leader, Amelia Sykes, I wanted to be over ag. Because that's where the money is. And when we talk about marijuana and decriminalizing it, I want to be at the table of who gets to decide when it becomes recreational and then it becomes decriminalized. So that's why I'm here. There is a lot of big education piece. So I was just telling Julie before, I'm actually going to be submitting a sub-bill, which there's already a current bill right now. but I just submitted a sub-bill to our chairman for that adds an education piece to him. But it would actually be dealing with cannabis. See what I'm saying? Right. So, because that was the biggest problem that I was having, that we have to change that message. So we have to put money aside to it. This upcoming hemp bill, Senate Bill 57, there will be money that will be set aside through our budget for hemp. With that, we will actually be able to educate people about hemp and all of his cousins and brothers and sisters in that process. And that's what I'm really pushing for, is that education piece.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. My big ticket question was when we're getting full legalization in the state and how that's going to happen, but I'll just leave that hanging while I open it up for questions from the audience, because we're already running short on time. And look at that, there's more than enough questions. You got your work cut out in this audience.
And while we wait to take questions, if you guys are interested in learning about the endocannabinoid system and CBD, we do complimentary classes at the Depot. They're usually Wednesdays. Check our Facebook page, give us a like.
I would want to first appreciate what Emily said about me, about Victoria, a number of people here, Mary, some of us who've been working on this for a long time. I've been at it for 20 to 40 years, depending upon how you count it. And I think that I've heard a lot of criticisms of HB 523. I testified before the House and Senate, the task force and all that, to bring the bill to the floor. In 2000, we did ballot issues, we've done everything. So I want the mindset to be set that we're appreciative of what we have so far. Think of it this way, okay? Now, I might have my numbers wrong, so everyone can come in and correct me. But I think something like 350 or more pounds was sold by the state of Ohio. $2 million, $5 million was made. We're covering 20-some thousand patients, okay? And I find that remarkable. I want to think of it this way. We sold 350 pounds. Nobody was arrested. Nobody went to jail. No mandatory minimums. No parole. No probation. No records, that carry forth with people who have been through that. And I want to recognize that's the foundation that we're staying. That's how I see it, having gone over 20 years. This is a foundation on which we're building upward. But I don't want to see people tearing the program down. Let's start the platform that we have and work upward from there.
Scott Cohen, the Cohen Group, just a lobbying firm. Audra, a quick comment on the terpenes. Wouldn't that be almost like a commercial or like a consumer issue, where the customers would really go in and you can, through the dispensaries, you can find out what strains are really better than having it legislatively like acted upon?
Oh, what I would like, because...
Yeah, I wasn't blaming, I promise, I'm sticking in my mind as you were talking about
the state requires the testing labs to test for THC and CBD. I've spoken with the gentleman that works at the Hawking testing lab. He says they have the capability of testing for terpene profiles, but the state doesn't require that to be on the labels of the products. I just think it would be nice for the state to let them test those and put that on the label so that when a patient does go into a dispensary and the dispensary employees understand what their varieties are, they can help people. Lead them more towards a strain that might help with pain better than another one that might help with anxiety or whatever. Because those little differences in the terpene profiles make a big difference in how you feel. And I don't think that would be hard to just throw that in there. Test for CBD, THC, and like top 5. Myrcene, pinene, linalool, just a few. Those make a big difference in the effects of the variety that you're using. I don't think that would be that hard to do that. I know that the labs can test for it. The state doesn't ask them to, and I think they should.
Our CBD products even have terpene profiles right on the side of the
right,
box.
And most states have
if
that.
CBD companies can do it, we should be able to.
Right.
Everybody's worried about the
THC to CBD, but all your terpenes are where your medicinal aspects come
They
from.
regulate.
That THC doesn't matter. I mean, it
Right.
can have a stronger effect for some people, but what plugs into your endocannabinoid system are the terpenes.
We're going over here, and then we'll come back over here.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Christopher. Just had a quick question. We had briefly touched on earlier about lobbyists influencing our laws and everything that are coming out. But there's a lot of us in the community that really, really support this. Is there an ongoing movement to put pressure on the legislative branch to turn the laws into our favor? And if not, do you foresee it happening? Or do they buckle to pressure like that? Or what can we do to get the pressure to them?
Thank you so much for that question. I do believe that there is not enough people at the State House. There might be a lot of people in this room, but there's not a lot of people that come down to the State House. I can tell you, there's probably been about 4 people who come to my office about cannabis. 3 of them are in this room. So, and that's just me. And when I go out to dinner, being here in Columbus, because I'm not from Columbus, I'm from Cleveland, I go out to dinner with my colleagues, and I'm telling you this for a reason. I talk to them about cannabis and who's talked to them and what's been the conversation. They go blank. They don't have anybody that's come on their schedule, or you talk to their aide. Word of advice: get a meeting with the rep. Keep pressuring it for the rep. The aide is only going to give a little one-pager, maybe not even that. They might give you a 2-sentence synopsis of what you said. So it has to be some real pressure. Even if you can get it in the district, you just have to be consistent. I don't think this General Assembly, there's going to be any big movement besides the hemp when it comes to any type of cannabinoids at this point. But it will come. The pressure will come. Our farmers are hungry.
It's coming.
It's coming. I believe it's coming. But we need you guys to better frame this. And this is what I ask of everyone in this room. Go home to your respective businesses, nonprofits, groups, newspapers. Please do this. But you have to change the message on why this is important for Ohio and how we are keeping Ohio's promise to increase our economy, to give people access to services that they need to have. That's how we keep our promise.
Just on that, I know I'm not one of those people that have been to the State House, because I have 2 businesses and I work and I do a lot of things. I know a lot of people have that, they don't have the time.
I have 5 businesses. I've been to the State House several times.
Okay, but something that everyone can do is call and email on a regular basis, because that does matter too.
Just to add on to that, I have done some lobbying. It's that face-to-face communication that's important.
That is.
Because unless that legislator can put a face to a product or to an idea or a plan, it just seems to, right or wrong, I mean, everybody's human, it just seems to fall to the side. What really makes the difference, and that's why you see a lot of organizations have a law day where they storm, I think that's probably the correct term, storm the State House. They storm right so that they know they're on their agenda. This is who we need to talk to, this is who we need to talk to. So the best way to get your point across is going to be getting in there, talking to your state legislator, and then talking to other legislators who might be in positions of leadership.
I've tried to talk to all the legislators, and I've contacted and mailed and emailed and called every single one of them. In the past year, I've probably, which is really actually good, I've met with probably 89 of the 132 legislators. Because they won't take it. So don't stop. Keep it up. They probably heard from me 20 times, but don't stop. And it has to come from everywhere. You know, everybody's got their own district or area that they are, but they don't want to talk to me here in Columbus, from Cleveland or Toledo or Cincinnati but that's why it's got to spread out. It's everybody's responsibility.
So, hi, I'm Sam Bissell, where I also agree that we're having some incredible conversations and great momentum. But if I could just ask a simple question, what is the problem? We have 17 dispensaries that have an actual start of operations, and some, 60 with provisional? What are the other 40 doing? What is the problem? Why is this being held up?
It's interesting you bring that up. Recently at a hearing, I tried to get some information from the Board of Pharmacy as far as what was going on. I know the Board of Pharmacy is talking to the folks who have the provisional licenses and aren't up and operating yet. Because at any time, if the State Board of Pharmacy isn't satisfied with the response they get, they can go ahead and turn around and revoke that license, if they so choose, or at least threaten to go ahead and revoke it, have a hearing and decide whether or not there's a reason. It really depends who you talk to. There have been problems in construction, I've heard. There have been problems in getting permits. There's been problems with cities changing their mind. Oh, did we tell you it was okay? We didn't really mean that, or we changed our mind. So there's a variety of reasons. Another reason I've heard, although I can't confirm this, is that there may have been some folks who didn't realize what they were getting into and maybe didn't have the financial backing that was necessary to follow through with what they needed.
Does it have anything to do with regulatory compliance at the dispensary level? I'm curious on that, the reporting.
Not that I've heard of, no. Matter of fact, I haven't heard of any official action being taken against any participant in the medical marijuana control program, except for the individual who was a patient. He had a patient card, and apparently somehow the cannabis was found in him, his wife, his son, and his dog. Outside of that, I haven't heard of any sort of disciplinary action that's proceeding against anyone.
This is directed to John. So when I heard you talk earlier, it sounded like you were suggesting that the federal government should kind of back off and take a laissez-faire attitude and let the states do the regulation of the industry, which sounds lovely, but the reality is there are a lot of women and minority businesses that go through a lot of work to get certifications for their businesses, go through a lot of work just to have their businesses. Those certifications allow them to access federal business, DOT contracts and things like that. Letting the federal government take a hands-off approach and not do anything, then it prevents them from doing business and being successful. So I don't think it's right to have a laissez-faire attitude at the federal level.
What the federal government needs to do is they need to reschedule cannabis to a Schedule II controlled substance. But then the problem is going to be there are some states. Take it off.
In many respects, I'm inclined to say the chatter is one of the challenges of moving forward in this space. And even if there's broad agreement, the status quo is bad, there's disagreement about where we should be going to, and that makes it awfully easy for the supporters of the status quo to say, see, we're just fine where we are. And so figuring out the role of the federal government versus the state government, figuring out if and when the federal government reforms, what form that reform should take is an ongoing challenge that unfortunately will keep me in a job, but may early in a job.
There's still 12 states though that don't have marijuana, medical cannabis legalized in any way, shape, or form. And that's where the resistance is going to be met in DC. We don't want to force legalization down any state's throat. So the simple approach that the legislators would take would be to mirror what they've already gone ahead and established with hemp. And that is, we agree that it is a product that we won't be interfering with. And when I say interfere, it means that they won't consider to be a criminalized act. But we, the federal government, want the states individually to decide. And I'm not trying to take any money. I'm not saying that it's going to take money. I'm not saying it's my opinion. But I think the only way this moves forward in D.C. is some sort of agreement like that.
But if you want small businesses, or if you want the momentum, you've got to get the entire business community in there. And that means those people who aren't in the industry as well, that are more comfortable doing it and can benefit from it as well. And so is it a special certification that they have to go through and renew every 3 years that they can tap into those federal contracts?
I don't see why once the federal government does whatever they do to make use of medical cannabis legal, but once they do that, that would mean that any business that's participating in that program would have access to those federal funds, just like every other business in the union. But right now, the concern is there isn't access because of the way each state is set up. and because the federal government says it's completely illegal to participate. And that's the problem.
Thank you. Sorry, I was caught up in the conversation here. I just really wanted to support what Representative Brent has been saying, because for me, my interest is as a former legislator, and I was invited into a venture for legislative expertise, because that is the critical, that's the linchpin of this all. If we don't deal with the law, through sitting representatives, and we don't have coalitions and caucuses and things, we're stuck in this, in this time track that we have right now. So it's important that we all collaborate here, and I think the discussion is great, and it's okay to argue as a family, but when you go before the representative, it's one number. Just as you were saying, that's always what the opposition is going to piggyback on. Another quick point, the economy is always going to drive the conversation. So, don't worry about changing people's hearts and minds, go to the pocket. Representative Brent made the key point, the commitment, number one commitment of the legislature, is the economy of this state. So what is the argument for cannabis? And how do you best make that and show how that can be of use to the state of Ohio? Forget trying to change people's minds, that's a waste of time. For the individual representatives, Representative Brent, one of the first things she said is, I'm just one person. Everyone has one vote as a representative, but you've got to have the majority of those votes to actually be able to pass the legislation. So the gentleman up here was asking, how do you manage that? Everyone can't just go to Representative Brent. And Juliana was saying, the people from Cleveland, the people from Ashtabula don't care what the people in Columbus are saying, because those aren't their voters. How do you get coalitions built in the areas where the members that you need to move live? Because those are the people who are going to have to vote with Representative Brent to move this forward and change the law. So you have to learn how the game is played and where you have to move your pieces in order to be successful, because I think these kinds of roundtables are phenomenal. I've learned so much today. I'm about to run out of paper. However, at the end of the day, it all comes back to Representative Brent and her office. Last comment. John Boehner, did a 180 when he left Congress, and that is an extreme opportunity to generate some movement on the other side of the aisle, because when we were having this conversation in the hallway, I think what it comes down to is not just the voters, because people are hired and fired election day, that are elected officials. So it's not just about moving their constituencies, but who are their influencers? John Boehner is a huge Republican influencer. What happens when he goes to the Ohio State House and talks to the Republican caucus? There's a validator there, someone to give them a level of comfort in at least considering and showing them how to move out of, the positions that they're entrenched in. So again, gotta learn how to play the game, because this is where it's gonna live or die, and that's the lady you need to talk to right now.
Okay, a couple of words that have been thrown around here, education, economy, revenue. So if education, the economy, and the revenue is so important in this medical cannabis industry, wouldn't it make more sense that we have more regulations on having a higher amount of CBD and terpenes in the dispensaries instead of the THC? Because if we're more concerned about the THC, then we might as well go ahead and just make it recreational right now.
Yeah.
So what can we do about that as far as the legislation goes? Because it really does make more sense. The pharmaceutical company makes a crap load of money. So you can actually kind of make more money if you kind of gauge it towards the patients that really need it. Me as a patient, I would rather have more CBD than THC. And I know that's not for everybody, but that's me. So for me, it makes more sense to go towards something that is actually going to be medically beneficial, more medically beneficial than just the THC. Because THC is nice, but it's not really medically, it's not doing as much medically as, and it makes more sense, like the whole program is medical. So I don't know, it's like kind of oxymoron.
Something you need to remember, the whole reason that they're testing the THC level is because the Board of Pharmacy decided that anything over that level gave you your negative effects and didn't give you that medicinal effect. So if you can get the state pharmacy board online and get the legislature to agree, that could all be changed. But it was a policy, I believe, by the Board of Pharmacy. I'm not even sure if they promulgated a rule on it, that said that the THC level will be this, and we shall sell no product above that THC level. And that was their determination as far as I know.
But what legislative-wise, what can we do to try to increase the amount of product that we have so it's more CBD? Like, understandable, they're testing for the THC, but CBD is helping way more patients.
It's a market.
I'm sorry.
Go buy some.
So, with the hemp bill, I know, who's been keeping up with Senate Bill 57? So Senate Bill 57 is sitting right now in the Ag Committee, rested as the ranking member. So one of the things that is happening is that there's going to be an executive order. I know I told you about this, and told a couple people about this, but we're looking for executive order to release all CBD products as soon as this bill is passed. That's what we are requesting from the governor. So the change is coming. It's coming. We are working on that for that to happen because we know how important it is for people to have the access to CBDs.
I think a lot of it has to do with the controlling agencies. Of course, they put the Board of Pharmacy, who doesn't want a plant for medical purposes. They don't want people having CBD. Why would they take CBD off the market? Because they don't want people to know what it does. They should not be controlling the medical marijuana program. The Department of Commerce, why do we have $200,000 fees per year? Because all they care about is money. You have the wrong people.
You'll make more money if you're helping more patients.
Your complaint is my complaint too, is that it's all high THC strains, one CBD strain, which means that you have to make your own concoction when you get home. But that's also illegal under the program, right? So I would recommend to contact the growers and tell them what varieties you want to see. They don't care. I'm sorry.
I think we have time, Sandy, only for one more.
Okay, I'm sorry. I would contact the growers and ask them for the different ratio.
I have one more question right here, and also on the topic of caucuses and coalitions, I'd also like to point out someone who's working really, really hard, and that's the Sensible Movement Coalition. Back there, Priscilla has it. They're working on statewide decrim, and we do have the best decrim in the nation already. If no one was aware of that, Ohio does have a very liberal decrim law already, the best in the nation, up to 99 grams of dried flower. However, it doesn't include concentrates, and that's what we're seeing here in the state now. We're trying to get it raised to 199 grams and adding in concentrates and also paraphernalia and a lot of other riders on that bill. I have one question right here.
All right, last question, wrap us up.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I actually work for Green Health Docs. I'm the regional manager, and I actually have a question. See, we kind of got off the topic here a little bit, but this is bringing it back to where we were talking about physicians and how there's a lack of knowledge when it comes to this. Now, I also am a part of doing cannabis consulting and as well as being a coach as a separate entity. But what can you, Audra and Juliana and Ali, really say towards us who are saying, hey, every doctor, every pharmacist has a co-pilot. How come my MMJ doctor does not have a co-pilot? If we are going to be the most stringent state, how come we are not the most medically appropriate state? How come we are not saying, let us teach our medical community the right way to do this? You're right. How do we get education to us? How do we put this into the law? How do I say, Ohio doesn't have cannabis consulting restrictions. They don't have education. They don't have saying, hey, at least you have your CPR license when you're working with a doctor. Know what you're doing. Know your HIPAA laws. You're working with boards, you're working with the medical board. How come the people who are being hired in cannot help these doctors understand? Because cognitive dissonance is real. I sit there and I talk to them every day, and they do have somewhat of some understanding. But on the other hand, in their scientific institutions, they're not being educated right. So how can I, as their standing co-pilot, help them? Where can I find this education?
So only 15% of the medical colleges will teach on the endocannabinoid system. That is the type of body system that we run off of. That needs to be taught at every medical school. The research, it's been illegal for almost 100 years. We have, and before it was illegal, there was no research. They prescribed cannabis for everything. Your knee hurt, you got a cough, you get migraines. Cannabis was in over 90% of the medicine because it works. They didn't know why or how, or they didn't have the science behind it. And nobody's been able to do that research. Nobody knows what to teach. It's really, right now, what we're down to is self-education. So I really encourage everyone, doctor, not patient, whoever, to search your endocannabinoid system. And that's exactly how you find out how cannabis works specifically with our body. But we need to demand it of our medical system. That's us.
So after 2 hours of great discussions that are designed to educate everybody who's been grateful enough to come and be a part of it, and our panelists as well, ending on the theme, we need still more education and more research, warms this faculty member's heart. And so with that, I hope you'll warm our panelists' heart as well. Grateful for all of you, and I'm grateful to all of our panelists on both panels for making this a spectacular event from my perspective. There's now a little bit of time, we still have the room for networking, and I think there's probably a little bit of cheese and crackers left. So thank you all again. Look forward to